Good morning. So can I start, right?
Sir, it's already 1:13 are there. You can start, sir.
Okay. So good morning, students. In the last class, in my section, we touched upon CSMA, then continued with CSMA CD and CSMA CA. So before going to the next topic, I'll just revise what we studied. In the last class, we studied that CSMA is much better than Aloha, but still it suffered, and it involved three strategies to make the efficiency much better. Was like it used one persistence method to get hold of the station. That's what listen before talk. It listen and immediately take over the channel to transmit if it has got a data. It uses three strategies. One persistence means it will check for the channel to be idle. Immediately it will start transmitting. And the other was non-persistence, right? So the non-persistence means it will be having, if the channel is busy, it will keep on introducing the wait slots of variable times line. And then at one time it finds that the channel is free, it sends the data. So another was P persistence, right? So the P probability time it will send the data, and Q it differs and goes for the exponential backup. That's what we saw. So the efficiency throughput was improved. But still we saw in the previous one there was a matter of concern was the collision, right? So collision used to hamper its bandwidth and the data transmission. To avoid that, we saw that collision detection. So it used to identify the collision. If it identified the collision, it used to abort the transmission. And then it used to go into this exponential backoff strategy. So as soon as it identifies the collision, it sends a jamming signal, stops transmission of the frame. So maybe the frame is a percentage is transmitted, sends the jamming signal to all other stations saying that the collision has occurred, and then wait for the backoff time and resends. That means in the collision detection, what you see here is the station that once it takes the control of the transmission, it will identify the collision. If the collision is detected, it will not leave the channel, right? It sends the jamming signals to the others, then wait for a backoff time and tries to send the packet that it was supposed to send. That's what it does, right? So that is what is the collision detection. But as I told you, the efficiency is getting improved, right? So for one persistence, it was going to be 50%, and for the non-persistence, it can go up to 90%, right? So that was the advantage. But then they thought that rather than waiting for the collision to occur, why can't it be avoided? So the three strategies were adopted in this, right? IFS, introduction of IFS, the contention window, send a frame, and wait for the acknowledgement. That guarantees the packet as delivered, right? That's what we went through the flow related to the collision avoidance technique. Then we went for the other different methods that is adopted in the multiple access. The second method is the controlled access. Controlled access in the sense, in the first previous one, it was the stations were independent transmit. Anyone who gets hold of the station used to send its frame. So independent stations. In the controlled access, they try to incorporate a little bit of control which will be agreed upon among the independent stations, right? Each station consult each other and try to find out who will get the authorization, right? This is nothing but giving an authority to one station among the independent station to get the right to transmit. So there are three methods: reservation, and then poll, and the other is token passing, right? So reservation, as I said, that the station which has got a data to send, whenever the reservation time slots are being given, it has to reserve and then send the data, right? So first a reservation frame will be transmitted. In that duration, it has to reserve its slot, and it is the order only. Always the order remains same, right? 1, 2, 3, fixed order. Suppose if the 3 stations are ready to send, only the first station is asked to send the data, then second, third, right? That's the order will be always maintained, right? There will be no priority. Priority means the fixed priority. Always the first will get the priority. If all 5 stations are ready to send the data, the first station will get the priority, then second, third, 4, like this, the priorities goes on. But in the reservation time frame, the station which is ready with the data has to reserve its slot. Then we went to the polling, and here it is little different from the reservation, where here there will be a primary, primary, and all remaining stations will be called as secondaries. So the primary will decide that whether who should send the data, who should receive the data. There are 2 functions will be adopted here. One is select and the other is poll. In the select, the primary, if it has got to send the data to any secondary, it is the select function that you have seen in the previous class. And when it wants the data, or any secondary is ready to receive the send the data to the primary, then in that case it uses a poll function, means it polls who is ready to send the data. But the polling will be done in the order only. So if there are 3 stations, first A, B, then C, polled. If that particular station is ready with the data, it will send the data. If it is not ready with the data, it will send the not acknowledged packet. So that means it is not ready with the data. Then the primary goes to the second one. If the second one is ready with the data, it sends the data. For receiving the data, the primary will acknowledge. Okay, so this is a much better strategy, because at a time only 2 stations will be in communication, right? The channel is shared by the designated stations only. So there will be no such cases of collision that is going to occur. But only thing is here, each station has to wait for its turn. So it is much better advantage. The next, let us move on to the third in the controlled access, is token passing. So in token passing, a logical token, right? A logical token will be circulated among all the stations of the network. The one which is ready with the data, it keeps the token, and next it transfers the data to the intended destination. Okay, so here, since it is the token passing, means the stations has to be arranged logically, not physically, arranged in an order, right? So this is the order. There are 4 different ordering strategies are being used here. So let us discuss one by one. So they are put it in the order, so that a logical link is developed among them, whether it is a wired communication or wireless communication or a satellite communication, whatever it is. A logical ring will be established, and the token will be passed. So one packet will be called as a token. The token, that packet will go through all the stations. And here we see the 2 relationship among the stations will be discussed here. One is called as a predecessor, another is the successor. That means this station, which is the behind the one that it takes the packet, is called as a predecessor, and then one which receives the packet from the previous one is called as a successor, right? So predecessor will pass the token to the successor. It has to go in the order only, from predecessor to the successor. So a logical ring in the sense they are not physically connected in an order, right? So they are logically, they can be placed anywhere else in the channel, but the order is defined, right? So that is what we call it as a logical connectivity between them. And here, the strategy that will be used is the token management is needed for the access method. That means if any station is ready with the data and if it has to send the data, it has to wait for the token. And then only it is authorized to send the data once it catches hold of the station. Station must be limited in the time that they have to process the token. That means, suppose one of the station is ready with the data and a token arrives at it. It is ready with the data, it holds a token and transfers the data, but when it is transferring the data, it cannot keep the token for a longer duration. So denying the right to the others. So there is some time limitation is given, right? It is agreed upon among all the stations that only it can hold the token for this particular amount of time. In that particular duration, whatever the data it has to send, it should send. If it has got more data, it has to wait for its turn for the next time, right? And the token must be monitored to ensure that it has not been lost or destroyed. Because when they are moving in the network, sometimes the token may be lost, right? Or it may be destroyed, or it may be corrupted. So a monitoring mechanism is essential, right, in this. Then another function of token management is to assign sometimes priorities to the stations depending upon the type of the data to be transmitted, right? So here also the priority can be assigned. So the one that is station which is supposed to send a very needy and essential data always will be given to the priority, and then at that particular time the lower priority stations has to release a token if the higher priority station is ready with the data, right? So the three strategies are also used here in the token passing. One is once a station takes a portion of the token, it has got a time limit how long it can process the token. And the second thing is the token there must be a strategy to monitor the token to ensure that the token is not lost or destroyed. And the third one is there is an option to have a priority among the stations, right? And as I told you that in this token passing, the stations are not physically connected, they are logically connected, right? Logical identification of the predecessor and the successor is identified here. So let us see that there are 4 strategies, connectivity topologies are defined here, right? The physical ring, right? The physical ring means here it looks as if though the stations are connected physically, right? So that means this is what is that you have seen is a physical ring. It can refer to the LAN also, where the wire technology will exist, or it can be in the unwired also. So they are connected with a link, right? And the token or the data will pass in only one direction. Look at here. In all this, the token passing methodology, the data always or the token always travels in one direction. No bidirectional transfer is allowed, right? 1 to 2, 2 to 3. So if the token is released, it can go from 1 to 2. And then it keeps circulating if none of the stations are ready to transmit the data, right? If the station 4 is ready with the data, it waits for the token, right? So until it comes. So 1 passes to 2, 2 doesn't have a data, it passes to 3. Now it comes to 4, 4 holds the token and releases the packet. And suppose 4 is supposed to send it to 3. It cannot send directly because the path is very short from 4 to 3. It cannot reverse the data transfer. It has to release in the unidirection that is already decided, right? It will release it to 1. Since the address is, the header will have the address of the station 3, one will not capture the data, right? It passes to the next second one. So since it is not intended for the second user, it will go to the third. Third is the intended destination. It takes the packet. So it reaches the destination. That is called as the physically ring topology. It looks like a ring. But sometimes the problem in this particular physical ring is, suppose if the link breaks, right? If the link breaks, then the whole transmission medium will be a breakdown. It will be a failure, right? Until the link is repaired, nothing can happen. No station can transmit to any other stations, right? Suppose in the sense that if this particular link is broken, only the data can go from 3 to 4, but not from 4 to 2. The link is broken, right? It has to be repaired. To avoid that, the other ring is, additional is proposed here called as a dual ring. In this dual ring, another ring is added to the network, right? So, and this works in the reverse direction. So, the two-way reversible ring is also suggested, but the second one, what is shown in the red, is only a auxiliary ring, right? It is not always used. The ring that is shown with the black, the logical ring that is stored in the block line, is the actual ring that will be always used. If there is a failure in one of the link, then it uses the additional auxiliary ring that is provided until the original link is established, right? So that in this particular case, the advantage of the dual ring or the physical ring is, in this particular case, the disadvantage is if any link breaks, then the whole network for a long distance communication fails until it is being replaced back. The link is replaced back. It will not be fully functional. To avoid that particular breakage, they have supposed the dual ring, the auxiliary ring. Auxiliary ring is only used only when there is the original ring breaks. The link between any two stations goes off. This the second ring will be used, right? And the other one is, sometimes we'll have the bus topology, right? So bus will be there in the LAN. You will have the bus. In the bus topology, we like to have a ring. In that case, logically the stations will be assigned the form of the ring because they are connected, you know. So in the bus they are connected. So one can send to 4, one can send to 3. Anything is possible. But if you adopt the token passing in the form of the ring, then automatically, logically, this station will be called as the one station. One can only send it to 2, 2 can send it to 3, 3 can send it to 4. So the logical ring, what is shown is the dotted ring, but the physical connectivity is only the bus, right? So, but they behave as though they are connected. Even though it is a bus connectivity, they behave physically, logically, they are in the ring, right? So, one can pass the token to 2, right? It releases the token to the bus. 4 cannot hold it. Only 2 will take the packet. Then if 2 releases the packet into the bus, only 3 will take, but not 4 or 1. No, because they are accessible. Even though they are accessible, since the ring is established as agreed upon, only they wait for their order and they hold the token and then passes the data later on. So nobody will have an authority to independently take hold of the bus. They wait for the turn in the ring, right? Now, sometimes we will see the star topology, right? So in the star topology also the ring can be managed. But only thing is, in this particular case, every node, it is not that one is directly connected to 2 as you have seen in the previous case. One is directly connected to 2. But here it is not the, since it is a star topology, each one is having a connection only through the hub, right? So the hub can send the data to 1 and 1 has to send the data to hub only. The hub will retransmit it to the intended destination. So that's why you see that now in the star topology, there is a hub, but it acts as a connector, right? The wiring inside the hub makes the ring here. The stations are always connected to the hub through two wires, one from hub to the station and another from station to the hub. But they act like the ring here, right? So if the one is the predecessor and the two is the successor, so when the token is passed, the hub has to transfer only to two. Then if the 2 doesn't have the data, it releases back to the hub. Hub will then passes it to 3. Then 3 will release this back to the hub. Then it passes to the 4. And the 4 has got a data, holds the token and sends the data to the hub. Hub will send the data to the intended destination. Okay. So that's how this particular the controlled access 3 methodologies will work. Okay. The next is the channelization, right? So the channelization we have seen, the third category in the multiple access. And this channelization already you have studied the channelization technique. The available link is only one, right? So that particular link either will be shared with respect to the time, or they are shared with respect to the frequency, or they are shared with respect to the another third method we will be studying here is called as the code. Right? Let us see that what is CDMA. You already know that the time division multiplexing and frequency division multiplexing, right? So in this case you have seen the time division multiplexing means each one is given a specific time slot to send the data. For example, the total time slot given for the link to transfer the data is 4 milliseconds and there are 4 users over here. Each one is given 1 millisecond time slot to send the data in the round robin fashion. So first one is given the first slot, second one is given the second slot, third one is given the third slot. Only in that particular slot, the time t starts with a 0. It is similar to your slotted aloha, but in the slotted aloha, as the time t1 is reached, everybody will have the authority to send the data. But here, in the order they have to send the data. First time slot T1, only the first one can send the data if it is ready with the data. In T2, the second one. In T3, the third. T4, the fourth one. The next, for the first device, the slot will come T1. Like this, it goes in the round robin. That is what is TDM. In the FDM, what you have seen, the available total bandwidth, if it is, for example, let us take that the bandwidth available is 12 kilohertz. Each station has its data is of 4 kilohertz bandwidth. Then the 12 kilohertz divided among the 3, right? So first 4 kilohertz, 0 to 4 kilohertz slot is given to one device, 4 to 8 is given to another device, and 8 to 12 kilohertz the bandwidth is given to the another one. So that they will transfer the data by tuning their carriers to that particular frequency and transmit the data. That's what you have seen in the previous multiplexing methods. So here, the same is extended here. Let us see the frequency division multiplexing, right? The same, the idea is same, but it works in a different way here. It is accessing the channel, right? Here. So that you see here, this is the media, the common channel that is shared by the 4 stations. And look at here, the frequencies, right? This is the time zone and this is the frequency zone. So the station 1 is given this particular frequency band. Let me take it as around 4.4 kilohertz is the total band. And then the first 1 kilohertz is assigned to this particular station. It is a border, right? 0 to 1 kilohertz. Then 1 to 2 kilohertz band is given to the third station, and 2 to 3 kilohertz band is given to the third station, and 3 to 4 kilohertz band is given to the fourth one. But here, there may be overlapping. Now, sometimes all these machines work. We cannot expect them to work so precisely. So the station is given 0 to 1 kilohertz band. sometimes, due to the some little deviation in the malfunctioning, the frequency of this will not remain at 0 to 1 kilohertz. It may become 1.1 kilohertz. So that means what is happening is it is overshooting into the other frequency band. So there will become a crosstalk. To avoid that, see that some gap is between the dots, right? So from station 1 to the station 2, there is a gap. This is what they call as a guard band. Around 1.1 kilohertz will be called as an idle frequency band. It is given between the two stations to avoid the crosstalks, right? Even if it overlaps, right? If one station's frequency just exceeds few hertz, it will never overlap into the signal of the other station. So the guard bands will be introduced here also to separate the channel from interference from one channel to other channel. So since each station is given a different frequency bandwidth, they send the data only in those frequencies so that when all of them releases the data into the channel, there will be no overlapping, right? The signals are not crosstalk, or they will never interfere with other signals. And any station can hear to any other station. Suppose now the signal station 2 wants to hear to the station 3, right? It tunes its receiver to 2 kilohertz, right? Because the transmission band given to the station 3 is 2 kilohertz. So this one, it tunes its receiver to 2 kilohertz so that all other, this signal and this signal will never be released, will never be accepted at this, because the receiver will filter those signals and takes only these 2 kilohertz. Suppose the station 1 wants to hear to the station 4. 4 kilohertz bandwidth is 1 kilohertz. It tunes its receiver to 1 kilohertz so that this signal, which is here in the common channel, will be only filtered and taken in, and the upper band signal will never be received. No? That is how any station can hear to any other station, right? In case of the time division multiplexing, so the total time slot is divided, right? If there are 4 stations, the 4 slots will be there. We'll look at the color here, right? So different colors. So this blue is given to the blue time slot is given to the station 1. You can take this slot to be 1 millisecond. So 0 to 1 millisecond is the start duration given. So if it has got a data, it can sense its data in this time slot in 1 millisecond. Whatever maybe the time slot is allotted. So it has to tune its, or it has to coin its data into this particular time slot and try to send the data in the time slot. If it has more data, it has to wait for the slot in the next reservation, right? So this yellow is given to the station. The second slot is given to the second station 2. The third slot is given to the station 3, and the fourth slot is given to the station 4, right? So they try to send the data only in their designated time slots. So now look at here. At the common channel, the data released by them will be available, but they never overlap with each other. And here also the guard band is given, right? So that crosstalk and the interference will not be there, so that the data will be receiving the intended, will be received by the intended destination without any crosstalks. So that is what is the time division multiplexing, which is an extension, multiple access here, which is an extension of that multiplexing techniques that he has studied in the previous sections. The third one, which you are not so far studied, is called as a code division multiple access. The channel is same 4 stations are there. Let us think. So previously they were given each frequency slot to send the data. In this case, they were given different time slot to send the data. And here, each station is given a different code, right? Here, the entire bandwidth can be used by all the stations, right? CDM may differ from FDM because only one channel occupies the entire bandwidth of the link, and it differs from TDMA because all stations can send data simultaneously. In the TDMA, the station was allowed to send the data on a allotted time slot, but here all stations can the data simultaneously, right? There is no sharing of time, right? And in the FDMA, there was a sharing of frequency. If the frequency, the bandwidth allotted in that particular channel is 4 kilohertz, as I explained, each station was given a frequency band of only 1 kilohertz. But here, the complete 4 kilohertz can be used by a particular station that is intended to send the data. So it will a little faster here, right? So how it works? Because we're telling that all stations are sending the data simultaneously, right? So when the all stations are sending the data simultaneously, then will not be a collision, will not be a crosstalk, right? So there is a chance of crosstalk, but that is avoided using a methodology called as a code. Code is in the sense that you can imagine that you are in a bus station, right? There are so many people. You see that in the bus station, you'll see so many people. And they'll be talking to each other, even though such a loud noise is there, right? And so many people are there. They are sharing the same channel. Here is the channel for a one person to talk to another person. But even then, I can identify my own friend. Suppose I'll come down, come from a bus, I'll get down, I look for my friend who is waiting for me. Even though he is 100 meters away, I can now talk to him, right? So he is able to hear to me. How? Because imagine that our focal point is different, and the other thing is the modulation, right? Each one's voice modulation is different, and then the language that we speak is different. You know, if there are 3 persons, 6 persons, and the two persons are speaking in their language. 2 persons speaks in Telugu, 2 persons speaks in Kannada, 2 persons speaks in English. Only those 2 persons can identify their the language of communications. They can easily connect to each other, right? That is what is the methodology used over here, right? Each station is given a code. It will send the data only, transmit the data into the channel only in that particular code, right? It is something like that. You can think that D1 speaks in Kannada, right? It delivers the data in Kannada so that whoever wants to listen, it should have a methodology to understand the only Kannada so that it can filter out other languages and receive only Kannada here. That's what is the methodology that is adopted here. Is each station is given a different coding technique, and it sends the data only with that code. So what is happening is, if the data with, because the data with every station is same, because all these are digital stations, either they have to send 1 or a 0. But when this station is sending the data, whether it is a logical 1 or logical 2, it is converted into the code pattern that is allotted to the station 1, right? That's what the code pattern allotted to the station 1 is C1. So what it does is, the data which is ready to send, it will multiply with its code, and then the product will be released into the network, into the channel. Similarly, if the station 2 has got a data D2, it is multiplied with code C2, and then its product is released, right? This is called as an inner product. Similarly, the station 3 and the station 4, right? So then what is this particular code? How the code will be decided? Who will decide the code? Now, there is some technique they use called as the Walsh table. But before go to the Walsh table, let us see this how the CDMA works, right? Here, let us take a scenario that there are 4 stations. Since there are 4 stations, according to the Walsh table, remember that it uses the Walsh table to decide about what must be the code for the stations. Let us see that later, what is that Walsh table. So here, the code assigned to the station 1 is this. It has got 4 elements. It is in the form of a matrix, a sequence of numbers. And this particular sequence of numbers assigned as a code to a station is called as a chip, right? So the chip C1 has got 4 sequences, C2 has got 4 sequences, and look at here, each one is different from the other, right? You can ask me how they are differing, what is the methodology that is used, let us see later, forget about it, right? How the chip is generated, let us not worry about it. First, today, in this particular session, let's see that this is the code assigned to C1, C2, and C3. And they should have some property, because when you say, when the station is ready with the data and it is sending the data on the channel by multiplying it with the code, there is some mathematics involved, right? So what type of mathematics? So it has got some properties, right? To do that multiplication, addition, and everything, because the multiplication happens here. Then when they are released here, the addition happens here, right? The added signal will be here. How to filter it, whatever the signal that is required when the station is ready to receive data. So some mathematics has to go through. Which mathematics it follows, let us see. The properties, let us see. Each sequence here is an orthogonal sequence, right? It is an orthogonal stations. And here, let us see the properties. The property number 1. If there are n stations, meaning in this case, we've got 4 stations, then each sequence has got 4 elements, right? If there are n stations, there are n elements. Here in this case, we've got 4 stations, there are 4 elements, right? If you multiply each sequence by a scalar, right, a number, then all the elements in that particular sequence will be multiplied by that scalar. You see that now this sequence is multiplied by 2. 2 is a scalar. Then every element inside it is multiplied here, right? It's just a mathematical multiplication. The second property is, if we multiply 2 equal sequences, right? If you multiply 2 equal sequences and add them, you will get n, right? So let us multiply C1 with C1, or let us multiply C2 with C2. So what is being taken here is plus plus minus minus. So we have taken C3. C3 multiplied by with C3. So in this multiplication, the inner product will be taken, means the first element will be multiplied with the first one, second is multiplied with the second, and later they are all added. So plus 1 into plus 1 is plus 1. Then plus 1, second elements. Plus 1 with plus 1 is once again a plus 1. Here minus 1 into minus 1 is plus 1. And then minus 1 into minus 1 is plus 1. You add all of them, you are getting 4. 4 is the number of stations over here. That is the second property. Second property is, if you multiply 2 equal sequences element by element, and the other result you will get n. The fourth property is, if you multiply 2 different sequences, means C1 with C2, or C2 with C3, or C1 with C3, then what we get is 0, right? So we have taken 2 sequences here. I think this is C3 multiplied with C1. So element by element they are multiplied. So plus 1 into plus 1 is plus 1. Plus 1 into plus 1 is plus 1. Now minus 1 and into plus 1 is minus. Look at here, there are 2 plus and 2 minus. The sum has become 0. So that means the fourth property is, if you multiply 2 different sequences element by element and add them, it is 0, right? And the fifth property is, if you add the sequences, once again the corresponding elements, because you remember the matrix addition, the corresponding elements will be added, right? And the result is, we will get another sequence, a new sequence we will get, right? That is the fifth property, right? Let us go back. The first property is, if the sequence has got n elements, means there are n stations. If you multiply a sequence by a scalar all elements in that sequence gets multiplied by that particular same scalar. If you multiply two equal sequences and element by element and add the inner product, it will be the sum is equal to n. Then if you multiply two different sequences element by element and add them, it will be 0. And adding two sequences element by element, corresponding elements, it will generate another sequence. Okay, these are the properties. Now let us come to the situation that how it works. The code division multiplexing works even though all the stations are allowed to simultaneously transmit. All the stations are allowed to use the full bandwidth of the channel. How the crosstalk will not occur? A station can hear to another station, right? So here, the data, I know that every station, since it's register stations, the data that they send is either they will have one logical 1 to send, logical 0 to send, or they are silent. They are not sending any data. So the data 0 is represented by -1 representation. The bit 1 is represented by +1. And if the station is not sending 0, right? That is the data representation. And let us come back how it is happening here, right? So we have to follow its the properties of the sequences, right? So see that now here, it is the station 1 is sending 0. So its represented is -1. And then the station 2 is sending 0. So -1, representation is -1. This is silent, it is not sending anyone. And then this is sending the bit 1, right? So representation is +1. Now this data representation, now it has to be released. The data should be released. It is sending. So it has to be multiplied with its sequence, the code sequence that is assigned to this. The code sequence assigned to this station 1 is C1, C2, C3, C4. So it will multiply this data representation with this code. Now this becomes a scalar. This is the elements. So multiply this now. So -1 multiplied by +1 is -1. -1 multiplied by +1 is -1. Now the sequence is available here, right? Similarly, this data representation, a scalar now, is multiplied with the sequence element by element. So look at here, -1 multiplied by +1 will become -1. -1 multiplied by -1 will become +1. -1 multiplied by +1 will become -1. -1 multiplied by -1 is +1. Now this is the sequence generated here. Similarly, the sequence generated here, since it is sending 0, whatever you multiply with scalar 0, now here will become 0. And respectively, it is sending +1, this multiplied with this is the data, sequence generated. Now all the 4 are sending the data. You look at here, it uses the last property, adding all the sequences, because they are merged here. Their data is available here, right? So all will be added here, element by element, and then available in the channel. Now this is the complete added data available. If any station wants to hear, then it can extract the data it wanted. Like you have seen in the FDMA and CDMA, you know. So it can, in the FDMA, you have seen that if the station wants to hear to any other station, it can tune its receiver to that particular frequency of that station which is willing to receive, and then filter other frequencies and select only that frequency. Similarly here, if a station wants to receive the data, for example, the station C3 wants to hear from 2, right? What it does is, it will take this added sequence, multiply with the sequence of this particular station, so that it can extract the data it wanted, right? How it works, let us see later in the coming discussion that I will explain you how it is happening. And its energy levels, just the signal levels looks like this. The bit 0, finally, when it is kind of multiplied, it is of this particular sequence. Okay, here, the bit 0 sent by the station 1 is this sequence. And if it is appeared in the energy level, -1 is now you see that it's a negative. -5 volts, -5 volts, -5 volts. This is the energy level that is sent by the station 1. The energy level sent by the station 2 is the alternative +1, -1. The energy level sent by the station 3 is completely 0. The energy level sent by the station 4 is this. And they're all added, right? The time wise. So here you see that minus, minus, plus. So these two will become -2. Added with this is -1. This is the summation of all these three. The summation of this minus and plus will cancel. Now this is minus. So this is represented by now the minus energy. Similarly, this is minus, -2. This is once again -3. -3 is the energy here, right? And the energy here is also this. This is the added energy that is available in the channel, right? Now, how that reception will happen, right? If the reception is trying to happen now, see how that one of the channel wants to receive the data, right? And if one of the channel wants to receive the data, now the station 3 wants to receive the station 2, right? Station 3 wants to receive the stations 2. So what the station 3 will do is, it will take that summation energy. This is the summation energy available in the common channel. And station 3 wants to hear to the station 2. So what is the code of the station 2? This is the code of the station 2, right? It will multiply this with the summation. When it multiplies this with the summation, now you will get this particular product. So let us see the multiplication. +1 -1 will become 0, right? And then here also the plus and minus will be 0. Here is -3 and +1 is the -3, right? -3, if you summing up passes through the integrator, you are having -3 here. Now it is the stations 2 code is the minus, right? And then this is minus, the inner product is minus. Minus into minus will become -1 into -1 is totally already it is +1. And then +1, and initially the energy generated with this is -3, right? So totally this -3 added with that -1 will become -4. It's the total energy that is generated. This energy now total generated is divided by the number of stations. Now this is -1. -1 is nothing but the bit 0, right? That's how. That means what is, if a station 3 wants to hear to the station 2, it takes this summation that is available in that channel, multiply this with the code of the station 2. These two are multiplied, and then the sequence are added. And then when the sequence are added, it will get the summation. And if that summation is divided by the number of stations participating in the channel, you will receive the data what station 2 has been sent. Station 2 is sending 0, 0 will be filtered out, and then that is being received here. That's what is seen here, right? If the station 3 wants to receive the station 2, it will multiply this with the code of this, and then add that. Finally, you will get the data what is sent by the station 2. And then how the sequences are generated, right? I told you that these are the sequences allotted to each station, right? How this sequence are generated is it uses Walsh table. So, right, the Walsh table now starts with the chip sequence. The basic rule that is assigned is, let us see if there is only one station. What is the code assigned? +1. W1 is +1. Then using this, right? We can now generate the code sequences for if the stations are increasing to 2, 4, 8 like that. So the another dimensional table is given here is with the formula that W2n is nothing but it has got 4 elements inside. Each element is Wn, Wn, Wn. What is Wn? Wn is this matrix, right? Let me take a condition where if n becomes 1, right? If n becomes 1, then the inner elements here becomes W1, 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 W1 bar. Now replace this with a W1, right? What is W1? W1 is plus 1. So this will become plus 1. This will become plus 1. This will become plus 1. Wn bar, the complement, will become minus 1. Now this is what the sequence generated. That means if n is equal to 1, right, you will get this as W2. That means there are 2 stations now, right? For 2 stations, the n value you have to take it as 1, right? So W2 means there are 2 stations. Then this is the matrix that we get here, the Walsh table matrix. In the Walsh table matrix, now you take the code. Plus 1 will become the code for station 1. Plus 1 minus 1 will become the code for the station 2, right? So let's see that how that has I just calculated, right? If there are 2 stations, n will be 1. So you'll have here 2 into 1 is W2, W1, W1, W1. Replace W1. The matrix for W1 is plus 1. Get this. So you now take the sequences. Station will have this sequence and the station 2 will have this sequence. Let us see now to our example. There are 4 stations, right? If there are 4 stations, make n is equal to 2, right? If n is equal to 2, 2 into 2 is 4, W4. Then what is the inner content here? Inner content is W2, 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 W2 bar. It should be W2 bar, right? I have missed that complement here. W2 bar will be here. What is W2? W2 already we have generated, right? Plus W2 is now given by plus 1, plus 1, plus 1, minus 1. Now replace it here in the matrix. W2, W2, W2. So replace it. That matrix. Plus 1, plus 1, plus 1. This is W2. This is W2. And then this is W2 bar. Since W2 bar complement of this. Now the first sequence will become C1. You see that? This is same as what we have shown. We used in the previous problem. Plus 1, plus 1, plus 1. C2 is the second station will get this sequence. Plus 1, minus 1, plus 1, minus 1. C3, this will be C3. And this will be C4. Okay. This is how the sequence are generated. So you can extend it. Suppose if there are 8 stations. Right? So if there are 8 stations, so use the same formula, make n is equal to 3, it will become 8. Then the whole W4 will become an element here. W4, so that you will get 8 elements in the sequence for each station. Right? That's how the sequence are generated. Okay. So any questions so far? Any questions? I have to unmute them, right? So if anybody has got a question, you can ask me. I'll go to the next topic, right? So now let us go to services of the data link layer, right? So what is the data link layer offered to the network, right? The data link layer offered to the network is the services offered by the data link layer. The first all these things is how it manages the stations to send the data, right? Different techniques we have seen, right? It uses multiplexing techniques, or it uses multiple access techniques. But what is the added service given by the data link layer for the data to be transferred, right? You have seen the data, the services offered by the data link layer is, the first service is it frames. Yeah, mute your microphones. Right. Hello. No crosstalk. Mute your microphones. Now let us see the services offered by the data link layer. The first one is framing, means the data comes from the network layer. So it has to release into the physical media, right? So what it does is it converts the data coming from the network layer. It is called as a packet, right? The packet, that is the datagram, is encapsulated, means put it in a frame. So that means the first job of this particular data link layer is called as a framing, right? It converts the packet received from the network layer into the packets, and then deliver into the physical layer sends on the link to the next node. That is what the first service offered by the data link layer. The second service is it controls the flow control, right? Flow control means the data received from the upper layer is converted into the frames, and then the frames are sent over the next link. But now, when suppose let me assume a condition that the sender is sending the data at higher speed, the receiver is very slow, right, in receiving the data, or the link speed is less. Or you can say that the receiving speed of the receiver is very less. Then in that particular case, the data is sent from the sender at a very faster rate, right? Frames produced by the sender is at the faster rate, but the consumer is very slow. So in that case, until it is passed on to the upper layer, so the receiver will receive the packet, right? It goes to the data link layer there. From the data link layer, it has to go to the network layer. So till then it is passed to the network layer. The data are coming very fast, right? So it should be held, right? It should be held, right? You can imagine that in one of the queuing concept that physically you have seen, some temples, the people waiting outside are more, but inside the space is limited, right? They are to allow only some part by part people, right? Only 10 at a time. In that case, they need some buffer zone, right, to hold them outside for some time. That is what is called as a buffering is required here. So the buffer must be allotted to receive the incoming packets if they are very coming at a very faster rate. So that means here, each station in the data link layer needs to have a buffer. Hello? No noise?
Yes, Sanji, can you mute?
Okay, mute. So it should have a buffer. So the incoming frames will be buffered until in the receiving station until it is passed on to the next layer. But if the buffers are full, right, what to do? So if the buffer becomes full, then incoming frames will be dropped out, right? There are two reasons, two choices. Only the two choices is either the packets frames will be dropped, or ask the sender to slow down, right? These two jobs are done by this particular data link layer, right? So the services offered by the data link layer to the upper layers is, the first one is it uses what is called as framing. The second thing is the flow control. Flow control in the sense it has got buffers to hold the incoming packets, but if the sender is sending the data at a very faster rate, either it should adopt two techniques. either to drop the excess packets that is coming, or it has to ask the sender to slow down, right? That is what is called as a flow control mechanism to see that the packets are not being, frames are not being lost. A communication will be there between the sender and the receiver properly. No frames will be lost. Flow control it adopts. It asks the sender to slow down if the receiver is slower and the sender is faster. And the second property that it services to the network is the error control, right? At the sending end, a frame in the data link layer is, suppose sometimes the bits change, the bit will change, and then now we look at here, the data so far when it is coming from the application layer until the data link layer, it is the packets, bits of ones and zeros. But now the data link layer should release that packet into the physical link, right? Or the channel, right? It may be wireless also. Now it is to be transformed into either the electrical signal or electromagnetic signal, right? So because so far it was digital data, it should become a electrical signal now. So the job of now the data link layer is converting the digital data into either electromagnetic signal or the electrical signal. Now, if it is a wireless channel, electromagnetic signal will be generated. And then that is its job, right? At the sending end, it converts the logical ones and zeros into the electromagnetic signals and put it into the channel. At the receiving end, it receives the electromagnetic signals and convert them back to the bits, right? So bit by bit. And then assemble all the bit by bits, convert them into frames, and then deliver it to the upper layer, right? And here when there is a transmission from one forum to another forum is occurring, there may be an error, right? The frame error will be there. So its job is to identify the frame error, and then if at all, if it is possible, rectify the error and deliver to the network layer. Now that is what is this job. So services offered by the data link layer is basically three. One is framing, second is the flow control, right? Controlling the speed in which the data is being received, informing the sender to slow down, and then error control, right? Its job is it should convert the bits into the electromagnetic signals. That is the second thing. And when it is reconverting it, there may be errors. Errors has to be rectified, right? As far as possible. Then we have to go to the addressing. Addressing I will take up in the next class. So this I will end the session now. So any questions, you can ask the questions. You can unmute yourself and ask questions if at all, if any questions.